Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I'm 29 years old, working as a wedding planner, and I have my own event company. Me and my best friend, Shannon, met in high school. We were the weird girls and clicked really quick. Soon, we started doing everything together and life became so fun. Shannon had been like the sister I never had. We grew up together, went through thick and thin. I could trust her with my life. But then one day I realized how all of it was a facade. Shannon got married young. She was 19 when she tied the knot with her high school boyfriend despite everyone suggesting her otherwise. She listened to no one and said that he was the love of her life and that she couldn't dream of not having him in her life. Those love-filled lines of hers did not age well as she divorced the man a year and a half later. She was heartbroken and miserable for months. I was there for her every step of the way. It did not take her long to patch up the pieces of one broken marriage with another. She got married again at the age of 23 with a guy named Marco. It was at her wedding where I first met my husband, Rolf. He was a friend of Shannon's husband. Things with Shannon and her new husband were going great, and me and Rolf were also getting very close at the same time. We started dating almost immediately, and it was all so perfect. All four of us used to go out on vacation together and spend holidays at each other's houses. Rolf asked me to marry him 8 months into dating, and that seemed like the easiest decision I ever made. Anyway, Shannon got pregnant with her first baby boy by the time me and Rolf set our wedding date. Me and Rolf got married after Shannon's boy was born so she could fit into the bridesmaid's gown. It was all so good for years. I loved Shannon's boys like they were my own. I refused to have children for several medical and emotional issues that I had growing up, and Rolf supported me in my decision of not having children. Never once did he seem upset or unhappy about not having a child, and he had an amazing relationship with Shannon's boys, so I always felt like those boys filled that empty space of children in both our lives, mine and Shannon's too. Things were going smooth until one day I received a call from Shannon where she was crying on the phone about not wanting to live anymore. I left everything at the work and rushed to her place. I remember her laying on the floor, mascara running down her face, and it was a mess of a house. When I asked her what happened, she started crying more. After a lot of coaxing, she showed me a pregnancy stick which read positive. It was her third child. I was filled with joy at the sight of it and hugged her tightly. I asked her why she's crying over it. It's great news, and we'll hold a party for her later. That's when she told me why she was being such a mess on the floor. She told me Derek, her husband, left, that they had been having fights over everything for the past few months, and now he's packed his bags and left. He told her that he will send divorce papers and allowance for the kids, but he cannot be with her anymore. It broke my heart looking at her like that, thinking how hard must it be for her to be going through it again and her kids. It was a rough time for her, so I decided to stay with her and the kids for a while. My husband had a business trip to attend, so he was in Chicago for a week, and he did not seem particularly unhappy about the arrangements, so it worked. I asked Shannon so many times why Derek suddenly decided to end the marriage. It was so abrupt. I mean, I've known Shannon for half my life, and she and Derek seemed very happy together. She always told me things like he started to have problems with her and he did not like her around, that he even started sleeping in the guest bedroom just to be away from her. I felt rage starting to build inside me. How dare he treat her so poorly and not even tell her why? So when the divorce papers were mailed, I called my husband last night and asked him to get to talk to Derek about it. It is so not okay for him to do this with Shannon, with her current condition. She's expecting another baby. He should at least think about that. Rolf told me that he's meeting Derek as soon as he gets back from his trip to Chicago. I hope he talks some sense into his best buddy. I simply cannot see Shannon like this. I cannot believe what my best friend Shannon did to me. I loved her all these years, stayed with her at her worst, and she repaid me by cheating with my husband. After I asked Rolf to talk to Derek about all the divorce things, and he said he would, I believed him, which I defiantly should not have. After Rolf came back from Chicago, he had just been telling me off about Derek and how he never deserved Shannon, and that it is best that they both decided to split up. I told him that Shannon did not decide that, and it was completely Derek's decision. He did not even talk to Derek, so I decided to take the matter in my own hands and called Derek. He was talking nice to me at first, asking me how I was and the kids were. I was a little surprised at first as to why he was being so nice. I asked him how he's dealing without having the boys around. He loved Shannon. What possibly could make him try and attempt something like that? He told me that we should not talk about it at lunch. I asked him to come at a wedding venue I was working on. We could have lunch at the inn diner. He agreed. For whatever reason, I felt like not informing Rolf about my upcoming lunch with Derek, and I'm glad I did not, because he definitely would have talked me out of it, and I never would have found out how much of an a-hole he is. Derek showed on time, and while we were sitting at a table, he asked me to brace myself. He said that he knew I loved Shannon like a sister and would do anything for her happiness. He loved her very much too, but then he found out that Shannon cheated on him multiple times, and this time he could not ignore it because of his love for her. I wanted to break the wine glass at his head for accusing sweet Shannon for something like that. She would never cheat on him. I calmed myself and told him there must be some misunderstanding and they both should talk. The boys have been missing their dad, and there's a new bean along the day. I told him he would not want to miss out on his kids because of some misunderstanding. What he said next made me question everything I have ever known about my best friend. He told me those kids were not his, that Shannon has been sleeping with someone else, and the boys, even the new baby, they're not his. I was shocked to hear that. I told him it cannot be true. Then he told me the most brutal thing I ever heard. He said those kids are Rolf's. I stood up at that and started accusing him of being a liar, that he ruined his own marriage and now he wants to ruin mine too. He sat me down and told me the whole truth. It all started when he found out about the boys. Derek has always known that it was hard, almost impossible for him to father kids. He got checked back when he served in the U.S. Army for 4 years. But when Shannon got pregnant, he was so happy he thought a miracle had happened. His healthy boy was born and he wanted nothing more. Then Shannon got pregnant the second time and he was happy, but despite his love, the suspicion started to grow. He tried to ignore the signs and everything, but then he could not. So 6 months ago, he secretly got the DNA of both boys tested and it did not match his. He was devastated. He came home and tried to talk to Shannon. She started crying and apologizing. He loved her and the boys too much to let go. He made Shannon promise to never do it again and that they will not talk about it anymore. The boys will be treated as his. Things were awkward, but they were doing it. Till that day, Shannon told him that she was pregnant again. He could not hold back this time and he asked who the father is and Shannon said Rolf. This was the limit for him. He could not watch her and the kids anymore, so he left. It was the limit for me too. I did not believe Derek at first, but when I told the story to Shannon, she started crying and apologizing. That is when I knew Derek was speaking the truth. I left Shannon's place after telling her she was the worst person I had ever in my life, that I could even accept Rolf cheating on me, but with her? I left and I threw Rolf's stuff out of my house because it is the house my parents gave me as my wedding gift and I'm not letting that cheater step his foot inside it again. I texted him that I will send him the divorce papers and he does not need to contact me anymore. He could go play daddy to his kids and baby mama. It has been 2 years and every day I've been reminded that the two people I thought the best betrayed me and made me go through this much pain. Rolf tried to talk to me and meet me. She showed up at my work quite a few times, but when he realized he can never make up for what he did, he signed the divorce papers. I had not seen Shannon since that day. It was almost like she left town, but then she called. I did not want to pick, but my curiosity got the best of me and I did. Shannon left the town to go get the better treatment for her lung cancer. We were all together and everything was normal when we found out about it. She was in stage 2 and doctors said there were chances of success, so we did not worry much with everyone gone, I guess. It was harder for her to fight this thing off. My heart broke for her and she said she doesn't think there's enough time for her to raise her kids. She gave birth to a baby girl, Rolf's daughter. She wanted me to take care of the kids as she knew Derek would not be able to treat them like his own. I just told her to take care of herself and hung up. Until weeks later, I received the invitation to the funeral. It broke my heart. I hated myself for not forgiving her and letting her die feeling like a horrible friend. But I decided to do the thing I knew that she would have done. I took responsibility of the kids. I already knew the boys and loved them like my own. I know they will always remind me of the hard time and betrayal, but I cannot have them going through the same. Now those kids call me mom. Am I the a-hole for not forgiving her sooner? NTA, she did cheat, and she broke the trust of two people who loved her so much. So I think she should have known the consequences and the bonds that she would lose. You were the a-hole for not forgiving or even going to see a best friend on her deathbed, if not for cutting her off entirely for years. She was a bad friend, but still deserved a little love at the end. My late wife died 6 years ago when our kids were 3, 5, and 6. I remarried 18 months ago, and my wife has known my kids for 3 years now. She had brought up adoption to me about 2 weeks before we got married. She told me she would love to ask the kids their feelings after the wedding and maybe start the process when we legally could, which is 6 months into our marriage. What I never told her is my kids had already expressed to me that they were worried about being adopted and didn't like the idea. This was prior to me getting engaged. My oldest was the one with the strongest concerns because he remembers his mom the most. But none of the kids liked the idea that they would no longer have their mom's name on stuff, i.e. their birth certificate and other documents. I reassured them it would never happen as long as they were against it. Honestly, I know my late wife would have wanted them to be loved, but would also have hoped for an adoption not to take place. She herself struggled with her father being erased by the time she was 2. He died before she was born, and when her mother chose to remarry, they chose to act like she was her stepfather's, who adopted her, biological child. She only learned the truth as an adult, and I know it terrified her while she was sick that she would be replaced, especially when our youngest baby was too young to remember anything about her. I ended up telling my wife no, and we discussed it for a while, actually. She was upset but didn't push it. Then a few weeks ago, her parents asked us about her adopting the kids. They said we all appeared to get along really well and how sweet of a gift it would be to her and the kids. I said it wasn't something we were going to do. They ended up asking the kids afterward, and my youngest was the one who said they didn't want to be adopted, and I knew, which then got back to my wife. She was pissed. I never told her. She said she was never given a chance to see if we could figure out a way to do it that would make them happy. I said I didn't see any reason to talk them around, that they are allowed to feel that way. Her thinking we could convince them is part of the reason I never told her. I never wanted it to be something that needed fixing because there's nothing wrong with how they feel. I also figured it would hurt less. That coming from me at least, we could have an adult conversation about it, but she could feel like the kids were rejecting her. Her family said I should have told her, and we should have worked on a solution with the kids together. I said no solution was needed. AITA? NTA for supporting your kids' choice. This is an extremely sensitive matter, and pushing them to change their minds, like your wife and her family want, is plain wrong. I mean, nothing is fixed in time, and maybe in the future your kids will change their mind on their free will. Or maybe they will not. This doesn't mean that they couldn't have a good relationship with their stepmom. The only mistake you did was not to explain the real reason to your wife because you wanted to avoid an unpleasant discussion. You just had to stand your ground. My kids said no, end of it. But a marriage is full of unpleasant discussion. Going behind your partner's back or omit important facts is never a solution. NTA at all, but they are if they push for it. She should be happy that everyone gets along without feeling the need to adopt them and try to replace their mother. Sadly, their mother won't be a part of their life, and they probably want to treasure her memory. So my sister-in-law is currently living with me and my mother. I am staying at my mom's at the moment because it's a summer break and I'm working at her small business. Sister-in-law and his son, my nephew and godson, are living with us too because they and my brother were living 6 years in another country and just now moved back in. So they don't have a place of their own yet. My brother is working his last months in another country. My nephew is 2 and I love him very much, but I really don't like kids in general, especially toddlers. OFC, I'm never rude or mean to any kid and I try to be nice and caring as good as I can. However, I'm an introvert, and after a long day working with customers, I really need some time alone, in quiet. It's also my summer break, and I had very hard and stressful year in my uni. Like, really, I have never been this burnt out mentally. So I need this break to relax because the next year is going to be even harder. To the issue. I try to help my sister in law as much as I can with my nephew. I play with him, feed, bath, clean, and watch him every day. And if she asks me to watch him for 2, 3 hours so she can go to the store or for a bike ride, I always say yes. However, lately I have been really tired and wanting some alone time so I can do some projects of my own. But I can do it with my nephew running around. He's very needy and a little spoiled. So my sister in law got used to my presence and sometimes just leaves without telling me or asking if I can babysit him. She is gone sometimes for 4 hours. After a while, I try to gently tell her to stop doing that and that she can't just leave me with her child. She got upset with me, telling me that she is very tired as well and she wants a break. The next day, she left again and I was alone with him for 3 hours and I missed a movie with my friends. I was so upset and angry. The next day, I had the day off my work and I stayed the whole day in my room painting and reading. When I got downstairs to get something to eat, my sister-in-law told me that she is leaving to see her friends. I said no and that I can't watch her son today. She got upset and tried to guilt trip me, but I stood my ground. She got angry and I told her that he is not my child and I'm tired of watching him and that I don't want to watch him today or tomorrow or the day after that. We argued and I ended up leaving the house and went to my friends. My mother and my other sister heard about our argument and said that IATA. Because as a godmother, I have more responsibility to watch and raise my nephew. Then I told them that I refuse my title as a godmother if that's the case, and now everyone is even more mad at me. So, AITA? My brother called me and apologized for sister-in-law and said that he will talk to her. I just got home and my mom also apologized and said that it isn't right to put so much pressure on me. She also thanked me for all the help and work that I've been doing around the house and at work. It felt nice. Sister-in-law is not talking to me. NTA, not your kid, not your responsibility. Godmother or not, she has been taking advantage of you. Your priority right now is getting through uni. She can take her kid with her to the friend's house. I'd question that a bit more. I seriously doubt that she dumps the baby on your brother to go out that much. What does